we looked into the data and we had normal turnover. I would say normal to the hospitality industry, which on its own is not so concerning. But when we started diving deeper, we realized that mostly those people left who were high potentials, who we considered high potentials during our performance reviews and talent reviews. Now that is an issue. So that's where we started looking into what are the reasons, what are those exit interviews, which elements do people name doing focus groups. And we came up with some learnings. And this is how we actually came to the conclusion that we have to revamp entirely our program. And we did. And I think the response is much more positive. And now we know much better how to take care of our high potentials. Before we stopped at identifying them, but then we didn't really do much afterwards. So this was a good point. It's a good reality check.
Welcome to the HR Impact Show. This is a show where we have honest conversations with global people leaders about building great workplaces around the world. I'm Dorothy, your host, CEO and co-founder of Engage Rocket. Engage Rocket is a HR technology and advisory company that helps organizations improve employee experience from hire to retire. Today, we have with us Edina Szabó. She's the Associate Director for People and Culture for Southeast Asia Pacific at the Radisson Hotel Group. She has over 13 years of experience and she specializes in learning design, organizational transformation, and talent development. And she's here to share her insights and experience on using data to transform organization as well as to build talents. Welcome to the show, Edina. Very nice to have you here. So for our audience who may not be familiar with you, tell us more about yourself and how you got into the field of HR.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. It's truly an honor. If I have to think back to my career, I would say, and probably Asian listeners will understand this more, I'm a dragon. So as such, I've been pretty lucky. I would say I was in the right place at the right time with the right people. But also thanks to my Western upbringing, that meant working very hard for that luck. So we believe in owning it, right? And taking risks, which I did along the way quite a few times. So it started with studying adult education management. This was a specialty of human resources. And then I moved into a master's degree studying neuroscience and neuromarketing. I really wanted to dive deeper into this. So I chose cognitive psychology as my degree. And I never thought I would end up in HR. I really thought I would work in marketing all my life. And I'm happy it ended up this way. So the past 12 years, I mainly worked in learning and development. And a year and a half ago, when I moved to Singapore, I started working deeply in HR and the entire field of people and culture.
So I find your background in neuroscience and in the field of cognitive psychology very interesting. Were there anything that you've learned from that field that you brought into talent management or L&D?
I think it deeply defines what I do. Consciously or unconsciously, it does define my way of working. So I definitely think of people from that consumer behavior perspective, the emotional brain. I don't really look at people as very rational beings. And it's true that I also focus a lot on how to motivate people. So whenever it comes to their development or to their performance, I really look into what's in it for them first. If you think of any of the advertisements on TV, they never try to sell you the toothpaste saying, oh, we want to reach our 5-year plan. Please increase our revenue by 23%, right? So we would never buy the toothpaste. We buy it because they promise our teeth will be fabulous, white and shiny and healthy. So I think it's exactly the same that we should do in our HR field when we develop people, when we try to engage them with certain programs, when we want to motivate them to take on bigger projects or on something out of their comfort zone. If we manage to look into what are they going to gain, that's half success usually.
That makes so much sense. And of course, now you're with Radisson Hotels in the hospitality industry, but before this, you also spent time with Amazon, which is a completely different industry. I'm Just curious to know, what are some of the key differences that you see between hospitality and tech?
Yeah, I think that's radically different. Probably what I enjoy the most about hospitality is that it's genuinely people focused. That this is a people industry. We heavily rely on our employees, and I love that. Of course, in tech, people are super important as well, but it's somehow treated in a different way. What is the same across the board is data driven decisions. And I think that's something I learned at Amazon and I carry with me. It's now part of my DNA. Of course, we need to be very conscious of the limitations of data in certain aspects. And I'm going to give you an example. Back in Amazon, we calculated absolutely everything, including learning curves. So back then, when I worked in learning and development, we calculated the hours that it would take a person to get to the level of a veteran employee. We called veteran those who were very productive, quick, found their ways. And this sounds amazing, right? But you really had to take it with a pinch of salt. So after a while, we realized there are so many other factors that influence this. You can't just put a number next to absolutely everything. So you need to be very conscious of the limitations. And then it helps you to dig maybe deeper, ask why 5 times. And then we come into the lean methodologies and a lot of things that we used at Amazon that later helped us. So this just showed me that working with data is very important before you start moving into one direction. And then you need to go into qualitative items as well, which is also data, but it can't be just hard facts in all circumstances. So, right now, what works very well for us in hospitality is using data as a basis and then working with frameworks. Because we have more than 1,000 hotels around the globe, it's impossible to handle this if you don't have a robust database and if you don't have standards. But if you create frameworks where you still allow for creativity, then of course our guests will be happy in our hotels. So it's not just a cookie cutter and people thrive because they can be themselves. So it's finding that right balance between the two. And I think it's great that I had both exposures, both the tech side and the very data side, and maybe now the very soft side. I don't know if you've heard about this, but hospitality on the list of tech savvy industries is the second from the bottom, right after fishing and hunting. So that doesn't speak very well about us, but that also shows the opportunities. And I think we are getting so much better at it. Definitely at Radisson Hotel Group, we take this very seriously. So we try to rely more on data, on technology right now, and leverage it, take the best out of it and mix it with the creativity of our people.
There's so many elements to your answer that I just found very interesting. So the first question I have is, you spoke about how Amazon actually calculated the time it took somebody to get to a veteran stage. What was the intended use case of that data? We love data here at Engage Rocket. So how is that piece of data being used in Amazon?
In many ways. So we calculated the optimal time for training. So not to overdo it, but not to underdo it either. So to know exactly how much training a person needs, how many days of practice. Now, if you think about the operation of Amazon and knowing exactly what time you will receive your package, you really need to do some proper calculations. So when we planned our workforce for a shift, we had to calculate knowing how many veterans we have, how many new joiners we have, where are they approximately on their learning curve to know how productive they will be and how many people we should have on that shift in order to fulfill the needs of our customers that day. You have forecasts, of course. This was some of the use cases, planning training, planning coaching for those people.
I heard about Amazon that you do daily surveys.
Every day you open your computer, you have a question there, which I think is a brilliant way of measuring temperature and engagement rather than just doing it once a year. Now, of course, I understand for many companies, it's still a dream to achieve that. But yeah, even warehouse employees who only had a little scanner, it would pop up on the scanner.
Wow,
So
amazing.
absolutely everyone answered one question a day.
You talked about also using the data, applying the data in frameworks, and I'm guessing you're doing that now in Radisson. Could you give us some examples of what frameworks are?
I think this is very important in such a diverse company as ours, and specifically in hospitality. So that's where, again, the differences come in between tech operations or logistics and hospitality. In my region, I work with 13 different countries. Even within those countries, there are big differences. And we are very proud of our diverse teams. If we tried to force them into very concrete standards, let it be brand standards or operational standards, or even how they learn and develop people, we would kill that creativity. And I think that would be felt by our guests when they go to our hotels. So, as an example, and again, a little bit back to the HR field, when we decided that we wanted to launch an acceleration program for our highly talented heads of departments to become general managers, we created a robust program. And after that, we gave 6 to 9 months of freedom, so to say, again, a framework with ideas that hotels could implement depending on the needs of that person, depending on the operation of that hotel. And I think this is what I mean by giving frameworks instead of just being super strict on everything. And I understand that it depends on the industry. Not every industry needs the same things, but frameworks work very well for us at Radisson. And we are very proud of this because it allows our people to be creative, bring their whole self, and wow our guests.
And actually, one of your cultural beliefs, the statement is something like, we grow talents and talent grow us. Could you tell us more about it?
Yeah, exactly. This is one of our 7 culture beliefs. And it's just that simple. Honestly, if we invest in our people, they will grow and we will grow with them. So there's very simple examples of that. Our current senior director operations started as a housekeeper, and now she leads the operation of our region. We have multiple general managers who started in the kitchen, who worked as interns, and now they are leading their own property. And I think those are brilliant examples. And you really need to walk the talk because people will find out if this is just a pretty phrase on your webpage. So we really try to show people that there is an opportunity to grow in hospitality, and there's beautiful careers in hospitality. And I love working with these people when they tell you their stories. I mean, they could write several books.
I saw in your many LinkedIn posts, is it a Radisson term to refer to employees as moment makers?
Yes, it is, because our brand promise to our guests is every moment matters. So we really believe that when guests come to our hotels, those moments matters. Those are moments of holidays, celebration, anniversaries, or maybe an important meeting when you're there in our hotel. So we really want to make sure that those moments will be pleasant and memorable. Who does that? Obviously, it's the people in the hotel. It's the housekeeper who prepares your room, it's the chef who cooks your meal. So that's why we call each other moment makers, because employees are the ones who make those memorable moments.
To draw it back to data again, because I see such a direct link between employees, moment makers, and actual customer delight. So, how do you track and measure success when it comes to culture building or the living up to the 7 cultural beliefs that Radisson Hotel has? And also, how do you link that to, say, customer satisfaction or how memorable their experience with the hotels were?
In our case, it's very easy. Or I say it's easy because it comes naturally for us. But yeah, as you say, guest satisfaction is the most important way for us to measure our employee satisfaction. Happy employees will make our guests happy. So when we look at those engagement data, you can directly relate it to our guest review index. So we have this very specific KPI. It's basically all those reviews that you leave online, right? Whether that's on booking.com, Agoda, all those platforms, we collect that. And based on that, we calculate a score. And this score is very much correlated with the engagement scores of the hotel. So we see that there is a strong correlation. But there's other details as well. So obviously the revenue that we generate, whether people feel like upselling and chatting with our guests and personalizing that service to them. We know exactly that people tend to spend more when they feel the service is personalized. So all these things are very much correlated to engagement. And I think one more very important data, and that's maybe not that much in the business side, but for us, it's important to see how many general managers we groom internally. And so we are expanding a lot, primarily in this region. And what makes us really proud is to be able to place a general manager to a hotel who grew internally. So that's a very important KPI for us. And that is related to engagement, how connected people feel to the company and to their team.
Just curious, was there a piece of data that surprised you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think usually the memorable data pieces are the not so positive ones, right? And this is why people tend not to use data. So some years ago, before we came up with our strategy to launch our new career plan, we looked into the data and it was quite devastating because we realized we had normal turnover. I would say normal to the hospitality industry, which on its own is not so concerning. But when we started diving deeper, we realized that mostly those people left who were high potentials, who we considered high potentials during our performance reviews and talent reviews. Now that is an issue. So that's where we started looking into what are the reasons, what are those exit interviews, which elements do people name doing focus groups. And we came up with some learnings. One of them was, okay, our careers, our career paths are not transparent enough. People don't really understand what the next step would be. They feel it takes too long to get there. And we know that younger generations don't want to hang out here and wait for 20 years until they get promoted. Life became much faster. And with that, the expectation is that you advance faster. And this is how we actually came to the conclusion that we have to revamp entirely our program. And we did. And I think the response is much more positive. And now we know much better how to take care of our high potentials. Before we stopped at identifying them, then we didn't really do much afterwards. So this was a good point. It's a good reality check. It's not nice in that moment. And when we presented this, I remember we sat down the executive committee and our chief resources officer presented the data. It was shocking. Nobody liked it. But that was also a good wake-up call to start radically changing things. And I think now we're going in a much better direction.
I love that story. And since we are talking about careers, Radisson Hotels hire 70,000
Approximately,
employees worldwide. It's a huge number. How do you go about really helping career progression within the group? And I read that you've launched a career month last year. What exactly is a career month?
So career months helped us to be intentional about this. So I think there's several levels of change management in this case. One was the data part, and that's still very important. So all this would not be possible without thorough data and tracking. So we have an HRIS that helps us in this, and we regularly look at that data and track mobility, career interests. And whenever I need to move someone from, I don't know, the world, I just look at that data and I start there. So as a good example, we just moved the revenue manager from the Philippines to Fiji, thanks to this data, because it was super easy for me to go to the database. So that's the first step. The second step would be awareness and help employees know about these programs. And this is why we launched the Career Month. And the third one was to help our leaders support their teams. And Career Months also helped in this because it was educational for both line staff and our people managers to understand what are the new tools that we are launching, what are those development programs, the trainings available. Here are some of the stories. And again, I think it's important to see good examples create some connections between people. So during this career month, we had a lot of activities, workshops in the hotels. So that would happen on property with the general manager, having career coffees, just a chat. Like, how do you see yourself in 5 years? Oh, by the way, you work in reception, but your dream has always been to become the F&B director and lead the restaurant. So a lot of new conversations happened during this. A lot of new information came out, and we became more intentional about it. So now the data is there, and our people know a little bit more about the tools that are available. And I think our leaders feel more equipped to guide their people on this path, or even know how to have that conversation. So in our performance and development cycle, we implemented a step, which is career conversations. So we have a meeting dedicated to checking in and asking our team members, how is it going in your career? Are you where you want to be? Do you feel you're progressing fast enough? Where do you see yourself in a couple of years?
Makes so much sense because every company, it's almost standard to have yearly performance appraisal month marked out, right? It's typically end of the year. There is also typically March is the bonus, but having a month dedicated to talk about careers, to make it deliberate, makes so much sense. I'm just curious, what kind of data do you collect? Because through the career month, obviously there are road shows, there's a lot of activities to your point, but these conversations, they capture so many important essence of it. Someone from the Philippines was moved to Fiji. There must be a data point that was recorded that, oh, this person is open or has an aspiration to work overseas. So what are some of these data points that you collect?
So we do track specifically. There is a little button for mobility. Are you mobile? Yes or no? Which are the areas where you are mobile, if you are? And for short term, long term, this is also important because we open so many hotels and we have opportunities for what we call task force, meaning you would go there for 2-3 months, help the new hotel, and then you go back to your own property. So these are all different ways of developing people, and we are tracking the specificities of their mobility and interest. And then from our job catalog, they can also choose the roles that they would be interested in becoming. And then we also track in how many years. So we try to go step by step and say, okay, in the next 2-3 years, these are the steps I would like to take. What will take me there? So actually, the career conversation is very strongly linked to a development plan as well. So it's not like we just have these processes. Usually in HR, we love these processes, right? We have this, as you said, in all companies, but they're just there on their own, floating around. Nothing is linked. So people feel like it's just a tick box exercise. Now we try to connect the dots and make sure, okay, so if we had an end of year review, and let's say the performance wasn't great, what can we do to make it great? Then we have a career conversation, then we create a development plan, and now suddenly we look at the person as who they are, as one person with their aspirations and ambition. I think that helps a lot to just transition from this tick box HR processes exercise to something that is meaningful and really useful for the business. Because then the other side of the data is, how much do you spend on recruiting? How much do you spend on training someone external to understand our brand and our ways of working and our culture? And of course, all these efforts pay off. These would be the main data points, but then of course we look back at the performance details as well. So we usually do a talent review, and that's a very thorough review. We literally review everyone in the company. So we have that data about everyone. We have the seniority, we have all the job changes. So we can also see if this person has just been promoted to this position, maybe it's not a good moment to move them. So we have all this data that helps us to look at some profiles. And as I said, being conscious about the limitations of the data, I still pick up the phone and I ask, hey, would you like to talk about this opportunity? Are you open? What is your situation at the moment? Maybe the kids are ill or the parents need to be taken care of and it's not the right moment just now. So the personal situation is always very important, but at least we have a big database of our people to work with it and be much more agile than before.
So, Edina, I'm going to switch gear and ask you a question that we ask all of our podcast guests. What is your vision of the ideal workplace of the future?
Ideal workplace. I'm just wondering why so many people lately quit and they say, you know what, I just want to start my own business. And when you ask them why, they say, it's going to be hard work, but at least I do it with passion. I do it for myself. I can put my heart into it. And that made me think. So basically, this is what people are looking for. So the ideal workplace is a place where you can just put your heart and soul into it. And actually, this workplace is able to recruit the right people for the right project and match them so they will thrive. It's easy to say, I know. And back to why I consider myself lucky. I love my job. I love what I do. So for me, it was always very important to be in a place where I could put my heart and soul into this. And that's why I think that would be the future for most companies, to look for this and try to encourage this. And I found this is in Greece, they call this meraki. So there's an expression to working, putting all your heart and soul into something. I think this is something that maybe other cultures should try to look for as well, because we spend so much time at work anyway, right? If we happen to enjoy it, it's going to work much better. And I think this is the reason why after the pandemic, so many people shifted to starting their own business or trying, even if it's something small, but they just want to do what they feel passionate about.
I think what you're describing is almost like empowerment. You're describing meaning and purpose, that I want to wake up and be excited about what I'm doing and having the freedom to dictate or experiment or try new things than being restricted by rules or structure or rigidity. So, what steps do you think companies can do to work towards this kind of, it's almost a culture, isn't it?
It is culture. And for me, instead of trying to get your crystal balls and guessing what the future is, I know some people are great at this. I'm not. I think we should just focus on things that will never change. And it's exactly what you say. Do you think in 10 or 20 years, someone will come to you and say, you know what, I don't care where I work, I just go in and then go home? No, everybody will want to work for a purpose. So if we think of the basic human psychology, focus on those elements, focus on those things that will never change. Nail those. And I think then you will be ready for any kind of change. And the world will probably change a lot in unimaginable ways. But if we manage to look at those core elements that are innate in us as human beings, then I think we can be prepared for anything. So job security, engagement, having a purpose, having autonomy in our work, all those things will be expected.
Yeah. Actually, there is a piece of data that we found even within Engage Rocket when we look at all the engagement related data that we collect, that engaged employees are not only more receptive to change, they're more resilient because they can bounce back from setback a lot more than a disengaged employee. A disengaged employee most likely will reject change, right? Because they have just given up or they just stop caring. The other thing that I always often tell employees within Engage Rocket, that when we increase an employee's experience at work, it's not only that person's experience or that person's life that we're influencing, but to your point, today is really about work-life integration. If someone has a bad day at work, I mean, chances of them bringing that home and then spreading that negativity. So I think that ripple effect, it's just really beyond that employee pool that you're seeing. You know, Edina, talking to you for the past 20, 30 minutes, something that really strikes me is that you have this relative comfort talking about data. Where did that come from?
I think Amazon shaped me a lot. So that was my first real job, to call it that way, after university. And the way Amazon's culture absorbs you is something very special. You can agree with it or not, you can like it or not, but there's so many things they do very well. And for me, one of this is everything is based on data. They collect data and how you connect that to the business and how you make decisions based on this is just wonderful. So it becomes your DNA. Now, I think what's very important to mention is I'm not good at numbers at all. Okay, I've never been good at it. I'm not great at Excel either. I usually just Google the formula because I forget it every time. So it's not that I sit on top of piles of numbers and Excel sheets at all. I think it's just a mindset, understanding that the basis of everything is the data. And whether you work in HR or sales or marketing, we work towards the same business goals. And business is about data. So everything we do is based on this, and there's a connection. So I think it's very natural in that sense. And hospitality is using a lot of data already naturally. So it's out there. You just need to look at it.
I love the way that you frame it because it's using data every day in our work to inform policies that we make, decisions that we make, to work towards the business goals. It's not about the skill set that you have. It's about almost a mindset that everything I do, let me rely it on data. Data should be the starting point. Don't you agree?
I absolutely agree. And maybe it also comes from my studies when I wanted to work in marketing. It's a very data driven area. And when I started working in learning and development, this was the most uncomfortable question when I asked my stakeholders, okay, and how are we going to measure success? And what are the data points that make you think we need this training? And they were like, are you questioning the reason why I need this training? I was like, by all means, no. But I would love to know once they complete this training, which we're going to work for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to develop, how do we know we achieved what we wanted? How do we know it's a training issue? Right. So I think this is where it all comes from. And probably my stakeholders still remember my uncomfortable questions, but that helped us develop people in the right way and forget about those tick box exercises. I'm a very practical person. And whether that comes from Amazon or I was born that way, I don't know. But I like to work hard for results. And data tells you whether you are achieving those results or not. Simple as that.
Now I'll move on to a fun part of this interview, and I'm going to ask you a couple of quick rapid fire questions. First one being, what is the one book you will recommend to our listeners?
Can I cheat and recommend 2?
Oh, you can recommend 3 if you want to.
One professional and one just for fun. Well,
Sure.
not for fun, but so professionally, I think one of the books that really made me think about people differently is Emotional Brain from Joseph Ledoux. This was the basis of my master thesis. So it really helped me understand that we are not rational beings as much as we like to think we are. And it's a very good reading, even for those who don't study cognitive psychology. So that would be my professional recommendation. My personal recommendation would be The Choice from Edith Eva Eger. She's a Hungarian writer who actually writes in English today, so it's translated into hundreds of languages. She was a Holocaust survivor, and this book really shows that it's always up to you to choose your mood, your attitude, even under the most difficult circumstances. I think for me, reading this book was just a before and after. My life changed radically after reading this. It really gave me the remote control. So I am sitting in that driver's seat and choosing a lot of things in my circle of influence. So I recommend that one as well.
The Choice sounds like an extremely interesting book and also very practical, right? I mean, in today's society, whether it's negativity or in a challenging situation, it's always a choice that we have how we choose to react to the situation. Thank you for sharing. My next question is, what is your go-to productivity hack?
I block my calendar. So I do block some focus time in that calendar. I can't always keep it, but at least I have that intention of having some uninterrupted time for certain things that I just need to think through, need to get that time where I'm not running into calls, answering chats, and all that. So that's one productivity hack. And the other one that works for me is I start very early before people arrive to the office, because that helps me again to get the most important tasks done. Usually I try to choose those where I need deep thinking or some decision making, and I'm still fresh. I don't have calls. I'm not stressed for other reasons. So I like to use that morning time for these tasks.
I block my calendar too, but I struggle with the discipline of protecting my block. How do you protect your block?
So I think my protection is I don't accept calls in that block. Okay, that's the first thing. Automatically, when people look at the scheduling calendar, they see I'm busy in that hour. So they tend not to try. But if they do, I say, I'm so sorry. As you can see, I'm busy already. So calls are out. For the Teams and emails and all that, I switch off the notifications, because I'm that person who even on the mobile phone just can't stand those little bubbles and numbers in them. I just need to open them all and have them neat. So,
Me too.
yeah, so I need to switch them off so I don't see them. Otherwise, it becomes a distractor. Those are my intentions. Now, I don't follow it 100% either, but at least a few hours a week, I do get this.
If you could have coffee with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
I would choose another Hungarian American, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and I would love to talk to him about his theory of flow and mindfulness, because these are two things that are very important to me at this point in my life. I read a lot about this. I try to find my way to that happiness, to that mindfulness too. So I would love to talk about these things with him.
And my final question is, if you wish that employees would understand one thing about HR, what would it be?
I don't want them to understand anything. I think it's not their role to understand. We should do such a good job that nobody questions what HR is doing. Sometimes I feel like we are that department that needs to explain. Why do we need to explain? Why are we still in that situation that people question? What is HR doing anyway? I think we just need to get better at this so it's obvious what we do. And then they will understand better.
Refreshing answer, indeed.
Not everyone will like it, but it's okay.
You know, I absolutely enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much for taking the time, your passion for data, your insights into how to build great workplaces. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for the invitation.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to our HR Impact Show. If you have enjoyed the conversation, please like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast apps. You can also subscribe to our community at engagerocket.co/HR Impact. I'll see you in the next episode.